Welcome to The Love Life. I'm Dr. Margaret, and I'm so excited about today's episode because we are talking about friendship. You know, in recent years, I've had many conversations with women especially who talk about how difficult it is to cultivate friendship as adults. You know, we're not kids anymore. It's not as easy as like going over to somebody on the playground and having a quick little conversation and all of a sudden you're fast friends. The older we get, the more difficult it can be to cultivate friendship. But when I have those conversations, I feel very blessed because in the last few years, I've met some amazing people that I consider new friends and also lifelong friends. And so today, I'm going to talk to two of my friends who I would say probably would be unlikely friends for me or even unexpected friends for me, but they showed up right on time. One day, a few years ago, I ran into a friend of mine that I hadn't seen in a while. We talked for a little while, and she eventually asked me about my love life. Well, I knew what she was asking me. And any other time, I would have said, "Oh girl, I'm still single." But at that moment, something clicked. While I was not in a romantic relationship, my life was certainly not void of love. There's an abundance of ways that my heart, soul, and life are full of and overflowing with love. Welcome to The Love Life. I'm Dr. Margaret, and on this show, I talk to some incredibly loving people about what that big four-letter word means to them. So join us as we explore the question, how's your love life? I would like to welcome Carrington Jackson and Lisa Yebuah, two of my friends who are spiritual activists. They are leaders. They are the embodiment of air and fire. And they are my pandemic life accountability group, which I will explain to you later. So, ladies, welcome to The Love Life. So as I think about our friendship, I think about like how our friendship has cultivated over the last couple of years. And one of the things that we've talked about is the importance of authenticity. That, you know, as we get older, it's very difficult sometimes to like have friendships that are really authentic. And so we're going to talk about that. But before we jump into a conversation about friendship, you all know the title of this show is The Love Life. And so a question I want to ask you is, how's your love life?
I'm going to use a word that I use all the time with S3, and that is my love life is quite robust. And I know that when we talk love life, people tend to think romantic, but I want to think about all the people in my life who've just shown me kindness, not random acts of kindness, but like intentional acts of kindness, especially during this pandemic. So, you know, folks have dropped things off on my porch. People have slid into my Venmo. I don't have Cash App. People have written me handwritten notes, probably more so in this season of my life than in any other season of my life, or just checking on me via Marco Polo or text messages. So I feel like love has been raining down on me through lots of people from my childhood and also to my adulthood. So it's a very robust love life.
Robust. Raining down.
Raining down.
I love that. I would say my love life, I feel like, is being tested. I feel like this moment in time is really testing what love is for me, how I show up to love. What is love? Love is sometimes yes, love is sometimes no. I too, I know that people kind of consider or kind of frame love through relationships, but in the bigger picture of love, how do I show up in the world and show you, not tell you that I love you? Mm-hmm. And in our friendship, for example, it's so easy to love you. And out in the world, if I'm dedicated to the practice of love, it's been so challenging often for me to show love to people who I don't have so much in common with. And so my love muscle is at the gym 24/7, working out to try to build the capacity to hold this moment. So
Yeah, this is a moment where it's really hard to love those who may not be as lovable. Yes, that's good. That's good. So I just really believe that like healthy friendship becomes a container, a vessel, a way for us to understand love. And so I thought we would start this conversation off by sharing or asking you to share an early memory of friendship. Like when you were young, how did you cultivate friendship? How did you know someone was your friend? I remember being in elementary school and one of my friends in the first grade, I believe it was first grade, her name was Christy, and she walked over and she said, "You are my friend." And that's how I knew that I was her friend. Again, in the seventh grade, my principal came to me and said, "Margaret, my daughter is coming to this school next year, and y'all are going to be friends." First day of seventh grade, he walked her to the cafeteria. He sat her down. He said, "This is your friend." And so there was just always sort of this easy, natural way, I think, when we were younger of making friends. But why don't you share an early memory of friendship?
I love that question. I have this, well, first of all, I feel like I blocked everything out of my childhood up until fifth grade. So there's a few things I can remember, but not a lot. But the first memory of friendship that I have was my friend, my parents divorced. My mom moved to a different town. It was my first day in fifth grade at a new city, new school. I'm at the bus stop, didn't know anybody. And this girl walks in with really, really short hair, and I'd never seen a girl with short hair before. She walked up in this blue dress and glasses and said, "I'm going to introduce you to everybody."
Oh, wow.
And she did. And by the end of the day, I kind of knew everybody in the fifth grade class. And she and I are still very close today. And I have to thank her for really showing me what friendship is, because friendship is to me, come along, come with, not wanting to let anybody feel left behind or left out. And in thinking about that question, it made me feel the way that she made me feel when she grabbed my hand. I felt that in my body, and it was such a good feeling. So, and it continues to this day. The work that I do in the world is about come along, being a bridge, not leaving anybody behind. And so I think that question of like, what is the root of things in our life? They do continue to grow, whether we recognize them or not.
Yeah, that's so true. Shout out to her for being your ambassador to the fifth grade at your school. Yes.
Take my hand. All of my earliest friendships, we always had something in common. So there was one, my first friend, her name was Kelly. We had the same kind of breakdown of siblings. Then in fourth grade, my best friend, her name was Laura, but she had a twin sister named Lisa, so she probably thought, might as well like relive my life through you. But the most significant friendship, and we are actually still friends to this day, is my friend that I made in seventh grade. Her name is Beth. We went to college together. I mean, so when I say that she is truly my childhood friend into adulthood, that is really real. But we had known each other since fourth grade, and I now look back and think we probably had always watched each other from afar, and probably assumed some things about one another's lives. But after Hurricane Hugo, so I grew up in South Carolina, Category 4 hurricane pretty much devastated all of our lives. We were out of school for a while. Either she called me or I called her just to ask what was the homework assignment for one of a class that we had together. And I remember we talked about, we both used to listen to the same Christian radio station, which now I look back and I'm like, cringe, just the kind of music that we used to listen to. And we started talking about our families. And there was a little bit of like this moment on the phone when we recognized that we lived very similar lives in regards to what our parents wanted out of us, some of the pressures that we felt, some of the sadnesses that we carried. And now I can look back as a 43-year-old woman and realize here were two seventh grade girls who had lived through a very traumatic event. We both came from families who were trying to navigate, financially how to repair our homes, and we found a level of comfort with each other. And I think we used to just tell the story. Oh, we knew each other since fourth grade, but then we became friends in seventh grade, and actually we became companions in seventh grade. Like we helped each other through a traumatic time in our lives, and so. I think it's not so much that our wounds brought us together, it's how we cared for each other that brought us together.
Yeah, Lisa, you made me think of something just now that I didn't think about before now. So recently I thought about, like you just said, how most of your early friendships were because you had something in common. And I'll say, like, until recently, until some of the recent friendships that I've made, most of my close friends are either only children or only have brothers. And I think, that commonality of like growing up without a sister, or sometimes feeling like an only child when you have a brother because they don't really understand you, and that's a whole other conversation. But like just making friends with other women in particular who grew up feeling kind of alone without that sisterly love, I think really kind of shaped the way I see my friendships. And so I wonder, like, how did those early memories of friendship really help to inform how you understand love? Like, what was that like for you when you realized, like, oh, I actually love my friend. Like, this is not just me kicking it and hanging out with someone, but there's love here.
Again, there's something about, my 43-year-old self getting to look back. And one of the things that I can say, especially with my relationship with Beth, is that there were some seasons in my life growing up I did not like myself. Was I happy with my performance? Sure. Did I think that I produced and performed for people? Yes. But like, was I really happy with myself? Did I really like myself? And I think about how Beth really loved me when I didn't know how to I really didn't love myself fully. When I think I had this narrative of, I'm just such an annoying person, or if I could just do things like other people. And she never, ever, ever asked me to be anything other than who I am. So I think, like, Toni Morrison says that a thin love isn't love at all. Mm-hmm. This seventh grader, until now, as adults, has never loved me with a thin love, which means in turn, I think I also began to realize, like, okay, what does it mean to love people however they bring themselves? And also to, Lisa, how can you love yourself no matter where you are in your life?
Yeah, I think that's good. Yes, Lisa, let it out. Yeah, that's good. Like, it made me think about how, I've said this before, but a friend of mine, he and I talked about, love and how it's hard for you to love anyone else unless you love yourself. And then he flipped it. He said, well, think about this in a communal way, that sometimes you don't know how to love yourself until other people love you to a place where, like, oh, now I know how to love myself because this person loved me well. And I think friendship becomes that, like this mirror that we can hold up and say to our friend, like, see how great you are, like, see how wonderful you are. So, Carrington, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, you were speaking about having a group of friends who were either only children or with brothers. My 4 friends growing up were all only children. And so there's certain things, like weird things that we only children do. Don't take my stuff. This is my stuff over here. I'll buy you your stuff, but just keep my stuff over here. Like, there's certain things that we recognized in each other, and we appreciated and saw in each other, and we didn't judge it, or that was normal to us. And it was also like, okay, I can just be myself. I don't have to pretend. I don't have to feel like I have to fit this mold of what other people are doing. Like, we get each other. Mm-hmm. And being able, back to your point earlier about authenticity, like, we didn't have to be anything to anybody else. There were 4 of us, 2 of us with divorced parents, 2 not. Like, there was no judgment either way. We got each other. And we're still, very connected and committed now as we've gone through marriages and children and death of parents, you know, we're still holding space to like see each other in our whole humanity, not trying to fit a certain stereotype.
Yeah, yeah.
I was going to just say just one other thing, is that I think one thing that I also learned from friendship as a child, and the ones that felt most life-giving to me, were the ones where I did not feel uncomfortable. You know, when people let me be myself, and I think that's something I'm not going to ever like move on. You know, people who make me feel uncomfortable. It's one thing if people who stretch you. It's a different thing when you feel like you have to always be, you know, doing a certain thing in order to be loved or cared for by them.
Yeah, like shape shifting,
Yes.
always having to move and maneuver and change. Yeah, because real love is acceptance. Yeah. So you can, if someone really loves you, they accept who you are, and you can be yourself. So obviously, as we can see, we are a cross-cultural, interracial friendship. And, you know, we've talked about this. We talk about a lot of things. We talk about race, we talk about gender, we talk about love and life and all kinds of things. But, you know, Carrington, I've shared with you that I don't really have too many white people, especially white women, that I consider a friend. Because, you know, living in this black body as a woman, a black woman in this country, and all that means, right? Like all the things that it means to be a black woman in America, it means that for me to call you a friend, I have to see that like you are going to stand up, you're going to speak up, you're going to advocate, you're going to show up, and you're going to understand me, right? Like you're going to seek to understand me. And so because of that, I just have like a lot of mistrust sometimes for white women, because I don't see how collectively, you know, white women are about the things that black women are about. Of course, we know there are exceptions to that, but collectively, it just feels like, okay, you care about women, but do you care about me? And so I've just seen that you are like a solid and real friend, and I'm like blessed and honored to call you my friend, especially in this time, like even before now, but like especially now, I'm just blessed to call you my friend. So I want to know, Carrington, like, what compels you to show up in the ways that you do for your Black Indigenous friends of color? And she has more than two. We are not our only two. But what compels you to like be yourself and show up and do all the things that you do for your Black and Indigenous friends of color?
Every single word hit my heart. I just want to say thank you for saying that. And also, grateful just doesn't seem a big enough word to speak on how I am so like viscerally appreciative of my friendship with you both. I feel like I work with my body as a way to understand things, as a way to pray, as a way to be with things. And I learned that through practicing yoga. Many, many years ago I started. And the deeper that I got into the layers of my body, the layers of my history, the layers of my emotion and mentality, what was brought to my attention through teachers, through trainings, was that the word namaste means when I'm in the place in me of light and love, and you are in that place in you, we are connected. And my practice took me to that place of, oh, we're all connected here. We're not having the same experiences, but we all are connected. And once I got to that like true visceral feeling of our interconnectedness, then the question became, how dare I not do the work to honor that connection? And for me as a white woman, it was education and re-education and being messy and being vulnerable and being okay with not being, having everything figured out, literally starting from scratch around how the world was presented to me. And I really truly believe that when you're operating from a place of purpose, people show up in your life, whether you magnetize them, whether it's divine placement, your friend, maybe the divine was working through your principals that day, your friend's father saying, you know, this is a friendship that's going to be forever. I don't claim to know exactly how that divinity works, but I do know that when I come into contact with people who are doing similar work to me, there's relationship, there's purpose, there's just this feeling like we're going to do this thing together. We're going to do it in different ways, but by God, we're going to do it together, and I'm certainly going to do my part. And so it's a no-brainer for me. Like, it truly is a how dare I not do the work necessary to understand this world so that I'm showing up in authenticity with the relationships, with the people that I'm blessed to know.
Yeah, there was a moment for me, so I don't know if I've ever talked to you about this, but there was a moment for me on social media where, and I tend to post things, you know, I speak out about things that are on my mind to speak out about, and generally the responses are great, like people are in agreement. But this one particular post, someone commented under my post and said something sideways, and I didn't really feel like responding. And before I could even craft a response, like you, I saw this in my mind as like, you swooped in, you slid in. And it was like, like you just had a beautiful response. And I was like, oh, that's what's supposed to happen. Like, I shouldn't have to carry this by myself. And Carrington is able to speak up and speak out, and like, I don't have to do this by myself. And so I'm just very grateful for how you show up for me, for all of us that are just your friends, even your friends who are not Black or Indigenous people of color. I'm sure they feel the same. Like, you show up for us. So Lisa, I want to know from you, like, and I will say this, I've said this to you before, you are probably my first like Black friend who had like such a large, diverse network of friends. And so because of you, I've met lots of people who don't look like me. But I've noticed something about you, that you are a consistent and constant friend to anyone that you call friend. Of course, there's levels, right? There's different types of access that you give people to your life. And I've seen you have really good, clear boundaries with people. But what are your love practices as it relates to like your friendships?
Yes. You know, it can get a little bit interesting when people call me their friend, when actually what they need to do is call me their pastor. Sometimes folks get that a little bit blurred. And so for me, I would say my love practices with individuals, and specifically with folks who are white, because I do have a particular commitment to individuals who are white, who are in my congregation. I come to serve and not to be served. I'm trying to help people be their most faithful selves, to like tap into their humanity, to know that they bear God's image, which may mean I carry a little bit more in that relationship than I'll be willing if I'm going to call you a friend. For me, one of my love practices, and I think this is for those who might be white who are in my life, and for me when I show up for them, is can that person interrogate, I'm going to yoke myself to that person if they can interrogate whiteness as a construct. Because then that means my friendship and their friendship doesn't become an exercise. Yes, friendship has curiosity. We're not going to always agree, but it cannot be, you can't be working out your stuff through me. That's just violence. I'm not a part of a 4-part program.
It ain't safe.
Yeah, it ain't safe. Yeah, I'm not a part of a 4-part program for someone else's redemption, but I had to die in order for that person to say, I have a Black friend. Oh God, no. Hashtag, don't say I'm your one Black friend. So one is that they have to be able to interrogate their whiteness. The other is that they have to see me in my humanity and not ask me to convince them of their humanity. Friendship is not about you begging someone to be like tethered to you. Friendship is like we just hold space with one another. And so I would say my love practices so that that person can be human and I can be human. Can you interrogate whiteness? And I cannot be in a space of having to convince you.
And the thing about it too is like, if they enter into friendship with you, and similarly like our friendship, then you know that's the expectation. So you can move into that relationship knowing like, I'm gonna have to show up differently. I'm gonna have to be accountable and be authentic and like not fake the funk, you know? And I love that about our relationship. We have, like I said, y'all are my pandemic life accountability group, and we have a shared Marco Polo and we check in about different things, but the conversations are just always like really grounded in love. Like I always feel love when I listen to your polos. So before we close today, I want to just ask a question. And I know like we can sit here and have this lovely conversation and pretend like the world is not on flames and upside down and there's so much going on. And as we leave this space, of course, we're going to move back into that world or that life. But love is present, right? Love is still here. And so how are you in this moment creating a life that you love or still focusing on creating a life that you love? I'm going to start with you, Lisa.
You know, about 2 weeks into the pandemic, I took on a new intention, and I think this intention is tethered to love, and I made the commitment to be gentle to myself. You know, I watch the news, you know, and there's not a lot of gentleness that comes upon Black women's bodies at times. The ways we're talked about, the ways that we are violated, the ways that we're not advocated for. And so gentleness becomes the way in which I live counter to the world. And that, to me, is the most loving practice, that if I show gentleness to myself and I see how it grows me, it might actually spur me to continue to be gentle to others in a world that sometimes doesn't know how to keep its hands open.
That's good.
I feel like every day I have to draft a different recipe for what I need to be loving and to feel loved. And so meditation in the morning helps me to kind of assess my state of being in that moment, ready myself for whatever's needed. How do I balance hope and hopelessness? How do I balance my self-care and my forward action? And it's all really just coming back to that. How do I like craft this recipe for this day when this day is probably completely different than the day before? So, and then weaving through that adaptability and kind of what you were saying, Lisa, about giving yourself some grace, being easy with yourself if things need to shift or adapt, if they're not going the way that you kind of had set up the day to do. It's so funny. A long time ago, I was talking with a friend, and I didn't actually even register that I said this, but she reminded me of it, which was, I told her, Betsy, it's about guilt-free living. And for whatever reason, I don't know why that came into our accountability group.
Target.
Shopping.
It was Target, yeah. Somebody said something, and I just said, this is pandemic life, guilt-free living. And now I'm not advocating for anybody to like go kill anyone or go sneeze in a field of grocery shoppers. I'm not talking about that, but like if you're present and aware, like, okay, I'm going to Target, I need these things, I might pick up an extra thing of cashew butter, or that tank top might be that I'm going to let myself be available to look through the tank top section and be okay with that. And so I think of that guilt-free living is another way to practice ease with self, grace with self. So.
Yeah, that's good. I'm doing the same things. Being kind to myself, trying to live guilt-free when I spend too much at Target. Not on swimsuits like you, Lisa.
Yeah. Always. A swimsuit and a vacuum. That's the two things that I have to just say, hold me back, Lord.
Random. Well, thank y'all so much for joining me on this episode of The Love Life. I'm just really excited that we got to have this conversation in front of other people because we talk about these things all the time. So, thank you so much for tuning in. And I just want to say that if you are in search or in need of like healthy relationship, I just hope that it will make its way and find its way to you because you deserve it. And so I'm Dr. Margaret, and until next time, live, love, and love life.